Hey guys, Aaron here. It is freezing and miserable outside, including in my garage, so I'm going to be working in the kitchen today. So I'm starting on the heated seat project, and the first thing that I'm going to tackle is those relays. So this is the box of 4 relays I bought on Amazon, and here is the diagram that shows all of the connections that are necessary. So I'm going to try to convert this into this. Hey guys, here's my disclaimer up front. I got this working. It took a little bit of trial and error. Hopefully it's not going to be too confusing for you guys. I just want to let you know I have a link in the description so you can download the correct diagram. You're going to see an incorrect one in the video, and as I learned, we updated the diagram to be correct. Because as you know, with all of these videos, this is the first time I've done any of this stuff. So a little bit like live TV. Now I consider myself below average to terrible, somewhere in that range at soldering. So watch a YouTube video on how to solder and you'll be right back with me. So all of these relays are identical. To line up with this, all you do is make sure that little bracket is there and set it here. And you can see that the shape of the pins lines up with the shape of the pins here. So the way to read this thing is the power that is coming in from our fuse panel eventually is going to come through here, and it's going to make one connection to pin 85 on our 4th relay, and also to pin 30 on that same relay, and it's going to come up and hit pins 87 and 85 on our 1st relay. So that is the one that I'm going to try to knock out first. My relay kit came with these fancy things, so all I have to do is figure out how to line that up correctly and snap it onto the back of my relay, like so. And now I have a different colored wire coming out of each of those pins. Now, if you have relays without that block, you can make it simply just use these connectors, which I'm gonna have to use later anyway, and connect a wire to them. Make sure that they have that plastic coating all the way around them so the wires around here do not touch each other, of course. Now for my own sanity, I'm gonna go ahead and label these 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So going back to our diagram, relay number 1, 87 and 85 are the yellow and black wires. Let's bend those up for a second. So over here, number 4, 85 and 30 are the black and blue wires from this relay. So it's these 2 wires and these 2 wires that need to be connected, and when they're in the box, these things are all going to be right next to each other. So there's enough room here for me just to solder these 4 wires together. Now, can you just put a wire nut on them instead? Yeah, probably. But we're gonna solder. So these wires are pre-spliced for me. Pull these off. Now, I also have this assorted box of shrink wrap. So I'm gonna take a medium-sized piece and I'm gonna slip it over these 2 wires so that after I solder them, I can connect it and protect it with this. So like I said, soldering is not my thing. I'm sure I'll get yelled at for my method here. All right, all 4 of them are twisted up together here. So one last piece, you are gonna need your really long wire that goes to your fuse connected to that group as well. Okay, back to relays 1 and 4 here. Now I have a bundle of this, it's at least 14 gauge, probably 12 gauge wire that came with a tow package kit that I never used. So I'm gonna use this wire to run back to my fuse panel, and I'm gonna use this roll of 18 gauge to run to my switch. The switch is actually gonna need 2 power supplies. One of them is gonna be the same power that goes to the relays, and the other power is gonna be connected to the light inside the center console so that when you turn your headlights on, the switch itself will illuminate. So that means I'm gonna have a total of 6 wires connected here. All right, one big connection. Now, is this the best way to solder them together? You will probably ask. Absolutely not. This is a terrible way, I'm sure, to do it, but here we go. All right, as I start this soldering debacle, don't watch me do this, but I also wanted to mention that another good idea is probably to just connect all of your wires first before you do any soldering so that you can test your connections. But, you know, what you should do and what I do are often different things. And this is more my style. I'm just gonna go with it and see what happens. Yeah, like I told you guys, I show you the good and the bad of what I do, and even when I know it's bad. But will it work? That is the question. Blah, there, try to come apart wires. All right, let's just hope this one's big enough now to cover this mess. See, now that was terribly poor planning because I planned this when I thought I was only doing these 4 wires together. And after I got to the point of realizing there's gonna be so many, that doesn't fit anymore. All right, I got the shrink wrap on halfway, but I give up, I suck. I'm just gonna electrical tape the rest of it. And it would all be really pretty had I done it correctly. Okay, next I'm gonna do the other one. This is the wire that comes out of the relay when everything is said and done and provides power to the seat heater itself. So we have a connection here at the bottom of number 1, and we have 2 connections here on relay number 2. So there are just 1, 2, 3 wires coming out of the relay and a 4th one that will lead to the seats. So for that 4th one, I'm gonna use this thick wire again, which is like a 14 gauge at least. And it is just coming out of my relay box into this heated seat. So it's gonna be right there. So I'm gonna get like, you know, 1.5 feet of it probably, cut that off, because that should be enough to reach the connection. All right, so from relay number 2, it is yellow and black again. And from relay number 1, it is the bottom one, which is the blue. So take the blue, the yellow, and the black, and ended up with about 2 feet of this one that is coming out. All right, and I don't have to worry about putting the heat shrink on first on this one because I have an open end to slide it over. Hey guys, this is me from the future, and I figured out that I screwed something up. So while you're watching this, I'm going to show you the right way to do it. On our first connection here, you're also going to want to take a piece of, I don't know, about 4-foot red wire and attach it to this as well, because this wire needs to go from here to the switch. So you'll see in a few minutes, but just note that what I just showed you is not correct. You'll need one more wire here. All right, fun with solder time. Heat shrink. And just for added strength, so these two don't get pulled apart, I'm gonna put a zip tie around them, hold them together. That way it at least looks tidy. Okay, one thing that needs addressing is this picture right here. This is a diode that actually goes between pin 86 and 85 on relay number 2. So the way Herb did that is he had them connected directly to the terminals, which we don't have access to because of this plug. So what I'm wondering about, let's see if I can't remove this plug real quick and use the holes in here. All right, this is one of the diodes that I just took out of this pack. Hopefully you can see here, but one side, the right side of this one, has a little silver band on it. And I noticed that in Herb's, the little band was on the right. And it looks like in this picture, there's a little band on the right. Whether that's just coincidence or not, I don't know, but I am gonna do the same thing. So he just wrapped his around here and had this part up on top of the relay itself. I'm gonna see if I can't. Just wanna do something like this. And I'll see if I can still plug it back in with those wires hanging out like that. Seems like it's going back in. All right, All right, so I'll try to do the diode one next to get that out of the way. So it is 87A, which is the red wire from number 1. And I'm going to use the same assumption that the picture is correct here and have the silver end on the right. So I'll connect the red to the non-silver end. So I'm just going to bend this to help our solder connection join on this well. And put this on. All right, and then the black from number 3 and the yellow from number 4 go to the other end of the diode. And just finish it off with a little electrical tape. All right, the rest seem pretty easy. The white on number 1 goes over to the red on number 3. The blue on number 2 connects to the red on number 4. The yellow on 3 goes to the white on 4. The red on blue doesn't connect to anything, so I'm just gonna snip this one. All right, so you can see here the white on 2 and the white on 3 combine and go to ground, and it also connects to the ground of the switch. So I'm just gonna connect the 2 of these and 1/3 wire that's gonna come out of the box. That's gonna be our ground. So I just took a few feet of white wire, came out of another box, and I'll just combine these 3. And one more zip tie on these 2 white ones. So I'm going to move on to this next diagram now. It's the same diagram as this one, and Herb made some cool notes on it for me. So it shows you exactly where things go. So this wire, like I said, connects to the seat connects to ground. The wire coming out of here, that is our switch, but here is a picture of the actual terminals on your switch. Number 30 here is the bottom wire for relay number 3. So it is our blue wire down here, the only one that is not connected to anything still. And it is going to connect to this pin on the back of our switch. So here is our switch and a little diagram here. So it is going to go right here. Now to explain the rest of this, we are going to connect 12 volts to, well, I guess he used brown wire. I think in the original wiring harness that comes with these things, if you have that, this wire will be brown, and it is going to go to a 12 volt that is connected to your headlights, so that when you turn your headlights on, it will illuminate so you can see it just like the other stuff in your car. We're going to run this to somewhere under the center console. Still have to figure that out, but that's where that is going to go. And this is the main 12 volts that come in. I already spliced off of this wire right here so that we can bring it out to our switch. And this pin here, as it shows, will go to ground. And the top one, this little bent on mine, is unused. All right, so I took 4 feet, cut that off of my blue spool, and I'm going to solder that onto the blue coming out of resistor number 3. Knock that one out. Now on the other end of that, I'm going to crimp it to one of these little red connectors. Yep. So following this diagram, this wire is going to come to this pin right here. So all you have to do is slide the connector onto that pin of the switch. And our thin red wire that we spliced into the power, I cut 4 feet off of that as well because it's going to go to the switch. That should be enough. Going to put a little red connector on the end of this one and connect it to our switch. And that's going to be this wire in the diagram to connect to the pin right next to this one. So we got 2 wires connected to our switch now. So I just cut off a few feet of our green, and I'm going to make this the ground wire that goes here. So I'm going to clip on another red connector. And I'll connect that to the bottom right there. All right, finally for our illumination wire here, I have a yellow wire. I just cut off a couple feet because it doesn't need to go very far. And hook it to our switch on this pin here. So this will be getting 12 volt ground from under our console. All right, this looks like a complicated mess, but I think I'm at the stage where I can test this now. And I'm using the new power probe that I just got. So I will be making a video on this, and I'll put a little link here eventually after the video is made to show you this cool tool, how to use it, what it does. But right now I'm going to be using it to apply power to my circuit here so that I can see if the switch is working as expected. If it is, what's going to happen is power is going to be applied here as if this was attached to the fuse box in the car. It's going to run into this set of relays that's connected to this switch. And I have the power for the illumination connected as well to power, so it should light up and illuminate and then allow us to press this. And when we do, it should allow the power to come out of here. This is the wire that's going to go to our heated seat. We should be able to test this and see that it is turning on and off with the press of that button. So I'm going to have this voltmeter over here connected to this wire to test it while I use this tool to apply the power. This tool has a little pigtail here that is the ground, so it applies ground for us. So I have our green wire that's going to the ground pin on our switch connected to it, and I have our white wire which goes up to the relay cluster, so it needs ground as well. And then I'm also going to put the ground of our voltmeter into here as well, so it can be grounded. So along with this wire, I'm going to put the yellow wire that is the power for our illumination together when I apply the 12 volts so that they will both be powered simultaneously. All right, guys, here is the power probe. I'm going to go ahead and test this now. Right here, you can see on the pigtail, I have those two wires going to the ground here, and I also have the probe of my voltmeter or multimeter plugged into it as well. So I'm going to apply power to this right now with this cool little tool. So when I do, so it has power going to this now, and I get the red light on here. Now it's really bright inside, so I don't know if you can see, but when I apply power and let go of power, the little light on the seat is actually turning on and off like it should. So that's good. And when power is applied at first and I test our output, I get nothing. So there would be no power going to the heated seat. So if I go over to our button and I press our button, I could actually hear the relays doing something, so that's a good sign. And if I touch it here now, there is 12 volts going to the wire, as you can see from the tool. And the other cool thing about this switch is if I take power away, you turn your car off and you put the power back on, there is no power going to the seats. That's why it's called a latched relay system, because it keeps track of the memory, and once power is removed, everything resets back to how it was before. So no power here. When I apply power back, you can see that light. No power here. Gonna hit the switch. I heard the relays. I have power. I hit the switch again. I heard the relays. No power. So the only thing that is wrong here is that this red light is only supposed to light up when I'm getting power from here. So I'm gonna go figure that out real quick. Okay guys, I'm pretty sure that I have this figured out. So this wire was for the illumination. Like I said, this wire we have drawn here where it's going to the fuse. So that is constant power, but that is wrong. It should not be coming from here. Instead, it should come from right here. So that when the power is coming through our relay, that is when this should come here, because that terminal apparently is what lights up our red LED. In the very first set of wiring that I wired up and soldered together, I'm gonna need to take that apart and add this wire from there instead for the output, so it will light up when the seat is being heated. Hope that made sense, but I'll get a cleaned up color version of this diagram that is all correct for you. So what it's going to look like is that red wire that is going into our switch currently runs over here into this little bundle that I created. So I'm going to remove it from there and I'm going to put it in this little bundle of the short one that's going to go to our seat. So I'm going to cut the red here, solder it into this bunch. All right, in case you screw something up along the way, all I had to do is cut off that zip tie, cut back the shrink wrap, and pull this off. Don't forget to get a big piece of heat shrink tubing and pull it all the way over this. I don't know if I mentioned this in this video or not yet, but when I get this stuff, I try to keep it as far away from this as possible, because when you are doing the soldering, the heat radiates through the wires, and the heat from the gun, if this is too close, will start shrinking it over there, and then it's stuck. Now I just wrapped the red wire around that, and I'm going to solder it on. So I'll make a note at the beginning of this video to remind you that that's what you were supposed to do. And now once you get here to the end, you'll see why. All right, you can see that I soldered the red wire over to that junction now. So if I apply 12 volts now, the red light does not come on immediately, and it toggles like it should. All right, guys, it's alive. That's exciting, and I think that's enough for one episode. I hope it wasn't too confusing. Just remember, you have to do that all over again one more time for the other seat. I'm gonna include this diagram here so you can download it, print it off, and use it for yourself as you are trying to go through this. So with the correct diagram, it shouldn't be nearly as confusing. After a little bit of trial and error, got it working exactly like we want it. So hope this was helpful, and on the next video, we will work on starting to get this stuff installed into the car. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.